It's Ryan with Rock 94.7, the Artist Spotlight. Beginning this past week, we made it an everyday feature because there's a lot of bands we want to feature out there. There's a lot of great music and want to help everybody out there discover a lot of these incredible bands. And one of them today is the band called Transgressions, and talking with their lead singer and guitarist, Kyle Bock. Kyle, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good today, Ryan. How about yourself?
I'm great. It's been a nice week. Labor Day weekend kind of helped everybody kind of recharge and everything like that. So very much looking forward to your guys' song Lost. But first, what we do with the Artist Spotlight, we really want to know, how did Transgressions form and when did it all come together?
Well, first off, I want to thank you for having me on the Artist Spotlight. It's awesome that you guys do this for a lot of upcoming bands. How we formed, we basically formed from the ashes of a few of our past projects. Myself and our drummer, Andrew Hotsey, were in a band called New Day Rising that was from the Chicago area. And our guitarist, Les Sednick, he was actually the producer for that band, and he also was a co-writer on a lot of stuff. And he was in a band called Atlas, and before that he was in a band called Between Myth and Legend. Basically, after New Day Rising broke up, me and Andrew left the group, we ended up forming Transgressions, just basically with a bunch of song ideas we had together. And Lost was the first song that came out off of what's going to be our debut EP. But Lost was the first one that we wrote and the first song that we really connected with, and we thought would be a good way to introduce people to our band.
And it's a great song, and I want to talk about it a little bit later. But Kyle, you told me before we started going, you're in Tennessee now, and I'm taking it the other guys are still in Chicago. So how's that kind of working out for the band at the moment?
Yeah, so I actually, after New Day Rising, after I left New Day Rising, I moved down to Knoxville, Tennessee. And we basically have been making it work just through basically practicing on our own to our backing tracks and stuff like that, and sending mixes back and forth, because our guitarist Les, he's also our producer. So that makes it a lot easier of a process because there's no middleman to work with when you're recording songs and stuff. So in the future, I have like a little home studio built out where I'm going to record my parts. He has his studio at home where he records his parts with our drummer Andrew. But our drummer Andrew is actually moving down to Knoxville with me. So it's just going to be less up in Chicago. But it's worked so far pretty well, and we're coming back in for our debut show at Rock House with 10 Years in Cold Kingdom. So I'm pretty excited about that next week.
Yeah, and Cold Kingdom was one of the bands we had talked with last week. We featured them very recently on the Artist Spotlight as well, and a band that's from Minneapolis, Minnesota. So we're getting a lot of the Midwestern people around here. I love it.
Yeah, the Midwest is a great music scene. You got a lot of bands in the area. Like, you go down to St. Louis, you got bands like Discrepancies. They're a good upcoming band that we've played with before in our past bands. It's just a hotbed for music right now. And the hard rock scene, it's really strong right now in the area. In Chicago, you got bands like El Famous. You got bands like Dear Deadly. Those are some of the bands right now that are really doing a great job.
And that's what's fun about talking to a lot of these upcoming bands, because Central Wisconsin, there's a great local music scene here. There's just a lot of talented bands, and that's what the fun thing about the Artist Spotlight is, really getting a lot of you guys, your names out there so people can hear all this great music, especially with being from the Midwest. And that song, the song Lost, one of the things we like to do, Kyle, with the Artist Spotlight as well, is kind of talk about the song that we're going to feature, kind of what the song is about.
Yeah, Lost is an interesting song because at the time the song was written, a few of the band members, we were all going through some different times in our life that we weren't really sure what direction our lives were all going in. We were all graduating college, different relationship issues, family issues, things like that. And we basically had no idea what was next for everybody. And that's basically what Lost was about. Was one of the lines is, "Will I ever be okay? Maybe someday." That line kind of represents that entire song, because we just didn't know what the future held. So we just felt like that was a really strong first single for the band, just in the sense that it had like this mysterious vibe to it.
And it's a great song, and it's the one that we're going to be featuring on the Artist Spotlight, so we're really excited to share it. And Kyle, you had mentioned something about an EP as well. So kind of, do you have like a name, or kind of when you guys are going to be looking to release that?
We don't have a name for it yet, but it's all recorded. It's just in the mixing process with the next few songs. The next single is going to be a song called Awaken, which is, we wrote that song basically as like a show opener, so it's a high-energy song. A little bit heavier than all the other stuff on the EP, probably going to be the heaviest song of the bunch. But yeah, we can expect that song Awaken to be out probably, I'm thinking late September, early October.
Okay, cool.
And then after that, the EP to follow. We're planning on doing 3 singles before we release EP, and then hopefully like some sort of 7-song EP, something like that. with a few acoustic tracks mixed in.
Okay, that's
versions of the songs.
That's cool. I like that. And I like one of the things you had mentioned about Awaken. You know, it's the song that you had felt would be the show opener. When you're working on new songs like that, do you ever just have the thought in your head like, man, I really want to create a song that's just going to kick everything off and get everybody hyped up?
That was exactly how that song was written. It was just something, in past bands and stuff, we always had like heavier songs, harder songs, but there wasn't really anything that I envisioned as like some sort of like epic opener to open a show that I just felt like it would just draw people's attention from the first chord, first note. And I feel like Awaken does that. It's got some, and you get into the first pre-chorus right before the chorus, and there's screams in there, and that's not something that we normally do, is scream, but that one has a few screams in it. And it's just overall, it has kind of a toolish vibe to it. So it's a little bit more experimental for us too as well.
All right, cool. Is that
the past stuff we've done?
Okay. Is that something that when you guys formed this band that you kind of had in mind was like, hey, let's try maybe some different things than you've done with previous bands?
We basically just threw the rule book out the window when we were writing this. It was a very easy writing process in the sense that we wrote one song with one direction in mind, and then it just kept snowballing different directions, different styles. Basically, this group of songs just kind of represents our musical influences as a whole. There's everything from Killswitch Engage influences to Red and Breaking Benjamin to even some of the more metal-y stuff that Les, our guitarist, was into, and even some more like one of the big things we have is like a cinematic feel to us. We have orchestra in a lot of the songs, a lot of orchestral elements. That's like from Red and certain bands like that. Skillet kind of has that kind of influence as well.
Yeah, definitely.
We feel like that enhances the song and kind of makes it feel larger than life in a way.
It does.
And that's something that we try to do with all our songs.
And it does. And I like the fact that you brought up Skillet. I've seen them, I think, 5 or 6 times. When they've got the cello in there, they've got the they've got the violin. It's a little bit different. Starset does that as well. Got to see them at Rock USA this past year. It's very cool. And then Red was a band I got to see. I've seen about 2 or 3 times now, and kind of seeing them up in person in a smaller venue when I was living in Bloomington, you can definitely hear those elements more in such a small area. It does. It creates that kind of ominous feel to it.
Yeah, we played a show with the guys in Red when I was in New Day Rising, and those guys, great guys, and just how they utilize all that orchestral element, all the orchestral elements, all the different synths that they have and stuff, and mix that in with hard rock music. To me, that's so cool, and that's just something that we kind of wanted to bring into our music more and more.
And it's cool, and I'm glad they had that influence on you. And like you said, you've shared the stage with them. You're going to share the stage with 10 Years, another really great band, and you guys have played with Saliva as well. Is there anything that you've picked up from those bands, or maybe they've offered you guys advice on, whether it's the recording process, your stage show, or anything like that?
I'd say the band that overall that we played with, they had the largest influence on me myself was Through Fire. We played with them twice in my old band, and those guys just were they were just professionals, and they, in a sense, taught us how that we should act in the big show environment. When you're playing with those national touring bands, some of the smaller local or regional bands can get nervous, can just kind of be overwhelmed by the situation. And those guys did a great job of just showing us the proper way to do things. And when we played with them the first time, we had no idea what to do. That was our first time ever playing with a national headliner like that. And then we played with them the second time. It was a completely different situation where we were comfortable and we were talking with them, and they kind of like, in a sense, took us under their wings for the night and allowed us to reach a new audience that we wouldn't have reached otherwise. So that was a lot of fun playing with those guys and just learning from them how to handle yourself in those environments, branding and stuff like that.
And that's awesome that they take the time to do that. Through Fire is one of those bands that is another one of those up and coming bands. They've got a lot of great songs, and they just seem, I've never met them, but they seem like great dudes, and it's awesome that they've taken the time to help you guys out with that as well. And Kyle, just one more question for you. What's the rest of your guys' 2019 look like, and then maybe going into 2020? I know you've got the show with 10 Years in Cold Kingdom, actually pretty much a week from today. And then what's the rest of you guys' year look like?
The rest of the year for Transgressions is basically set up to be a lot of writing. We have the EP that we're planning on releasing already completely written, and it's just in the mixing phase. But after that, I think we're getting ready to start writing what we're hoping to be our first full length to follow up from the EP, just get that whole process rolling, along with playing probably 2 or 3 more regional shows. That's kind of the goal, is to play a show every month or so right now when we're first starting out, get our feet wet, and then just kind of have it snowball from there. Just keep growing the fan base, keep getting our name out there, and hopefully build some momentum. That's
awesome, and make sure you follow the guy. Give him a like on Facebook, follow him on Twitter. Do you guys have a website as well?
The website's coming soon. It's going to be transgressionsmusic.com. But we're going to get that up shortly. That's coming in the next few months, hopefully.
Awesome. Make sure you follow them on all the socials. Give the guys a like. And on September 9th is where we're going to be featuring their new single called Lost. So very excited to share that with everybody for the Artist Spotlight. So, Kyle from Transgressions, man, we really appreciate you taking the time today, chatting with us, and best of luck with everything in the future.
Thank you very much, Ryan, and thank you for having me on.